Hello class, and welcome to video 26, Leadership Part 2. So to begin with, we're going to talk about Douglas McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y. He came up with these two theories, which are assumptions that managers may have about employees. These assumptions will fit some managers and the employees they manage. He called them X and Y, I guess, so we wouldn't have any biases with the labels, but that makes it hard to remember which is which. But I'll give you an idea how to do that. So let's start with Theory X. A Theory X manager has these assumptions about employees: that people dislike work, that you have to coerce them to get them to put forth effort. If you don't work, or you'll get fired or docked in your pay or something. And people want direction, they want to be told what to do. They avoid responsibility, they don't come and volunteer to do extra work. And the leadership style that you'll use, if these are your assumptions about people, is an autocratic style or task-oriented. Now, there are probably people who meet these assumptions, and if you use this leadership style with them, that probably works. The other theory is called Theory Y. It assumes that people like work, that work is just as natural as play, that people are self-directed, they like to be autonomous, make their own decisions, that people seek responsibility, they like responsibility, and that subordinates can be creative, not just the manager has the good ideas. If you have that set of assumptions, your leadership style will be participative or people-oriented. Now, there are probably some employees or people you lead who meet those assumptions, so this works for them. So the way that I remember this is X comes before Y in the library and the alphabet, and A for autocratic leadership style comes before P for participative style, X and Y, so maybe that will help. The problem comes up when you do not match. Just say you're a Theory X manager and you're trying to manage people who are Theory Y. That's a mismatch, or vice versa. So you have to be careful. Now, which style is generally best, to be task-oriented or people-oriented? Kind of ask that question. We're not in the class, so you can't answer, but I'll bet 90% of you would probably say it's better to be people-oriented. So let's do a little classification of leaders to see how we view this. So I'm going to show you on the screen some famous leaders, and you're going to try to decide in your own mind whether they are task-oriented, people-oriented, or in the middle. We put them in the middle if they either we can't decide, or sometimes they seem task and sometimes they seem to be people-oriented. Now, I've done this exercise many times in workshops and in classes, so I'm going to provide for you the answers given the majority of times. You may or may not agree with those. So we're going to start out with Saddam Hussein. Remember him? Saddam Hussein, the dictator leader of Iraq. Most people would say that he is task-oriented. The next leader is George H.W. Bush. You think he was people-oriented or task-oriented, or was he in the middle? Most people put him in the middle. Sometimes task, sometimes people. What about Ronald Reagan? Was he task-oriented, people-oriented, or a little of both, and so we'll put him in the middle? Most people put him in the middle. What about General Patton? Not really a picture of him, obviously, but he was a general during World War II, task or people-oriented, or middle. Almost everyone classifies him task, as we do most military leaders. How about Fidel Castro down in Cuba? Most people will list him as task-oriented. What about Jimmy Carter, who was a president at one time? Old smiley face, I call him. Was he task-oriented, people-oriented, or both? Most people will say people-oriented. We remember him as a humanitarian, his work with Habitat for Humanity after he left the presidency, people-oriented. What about Bill Clinton? Task, people, or middle? Most people put him in the middle. Some say people, but they're thinking about other things. Some people say task, but we'll put him in the middle for now. How about Adolf Hitler? Especially non-Germans will classify him as task-oriented. How about Pope Francis. Almost everyone will classify him as people because he's a religious leader. What about Dr. Martin Luther King? Task, people, or middle? Most people will classify him as people because he was concerned for people. You could make a case for task because he led the civil rights movement, or maybe middle because he was both, but we'll leave him as people for now. How about Cleopatra? Don't know how much you know about her and her history, but most people will say she was people-oriented. Not sure if I agree with that, but that's okay. Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady, former leader of Great Britain. Most people will say people, but some people will say task because she was the Iron Lady, but we'll leave her as people for now. Barack Obama, task, people, or middle? We're going to put him in the middle because he had some things he wanted to accomplish, and he was also people-oriented sometimes, so we're going to put him in the middle. That's where he usually ends up. Donald Trump. Almost everybody classified him as task-oriented. Vladimir Putin. Almost everyone will classify him as task-oriented. Hillary Clinton. People, task, or middle? Usually, most people classify her as task, but not all. So here's my question. Why do we have more task-oriented leaders? Notice that I've got 5 to 7 over on the task side, 2 to 3 that are people-oriented, and only 2 to 4 that are in the middle. When we said to begin with that most people will say you should be people-oriented. What do the people on the left, task-oriented, have in common? They usually are military leaders or have some major goal that they're kind of obsessed with and that they want to do. Those on the right are usually religious or humanitarian leaders. The most effective leaders, I think, are those that are in the middle, those that can be task or people-oriented depending upon the situation. And you'll notice I have 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans in that area. My favorite example is when Ronald Reagan was president. I remember when he sent the Marines down to a nation called Grenada because there was a Soviet military presence there and we had medical students, and he said we're going to rescue him, so he sent the Marines in, took over the island. Very task-oriented. I also remember when the Marine barracks in Beirut was bombed and we had several hundred Marines that were killed. I remember seeing him at the airport on the tarmac as they were unloading the bodies, and he was there with the families of the people who had been killed, the soldiers who had been killed, hugging the people and crying with them. That was people. So he's task sometimes and people sometimes. Same goes for all the others that I have there in the middle. So those are the most effective. They have the ability to be task-oriented or people-oriented, depending upon what? Depending upon the situation. So the best leadership style depends on the situation. So this leads us to the breakthrough theory of Fred Fiedler, who came up with what he called the contingency leadership theory. He said that sometimes it's better to be people-oriented above that horizontal line, sometimes task-oriented below it, and that other line that's going there indicating something called the LPC score indicates when it's better to be task and when it's better to be people, and we'll kind of explain how that goes. LPC stands for least preferred coworker. It was a survey he did, and in essence he said there are 3 factors that determine whether you should be people or task-oriented. The first is the leader-member relationship. You can have a good or poor relationship with those you lead. The second was the nature of the task itself. Is it highly structured and easy to understand, or is it unstructured and more vague? And the third factor, he said, was your position power. The power you have in your leadership position with the people you're trying to lead can be strong or it can be weak. So the way you apply this, let's say you're faced with a situation, an employee comes in your office and says, what should I do, boss? And you stop and say, what's my leader-member relationship here? It's good. This problem structured or unstructured? It's structured. Is my position power strong or weak? It's weak. So you're in this block down here near the bottom left. You follow that up and you see that hits underneath the line, the horizontal line, showing that you should be task-oriented. The trouble is, by the time you go through that analysis, the probably person who is asking for help probably left your office, and it's very difficult. So you can't apply this exactly. But the point that he made is very good, that the best leadership style depends on the situation. And here are 3 factors to consider: leader-member relationship, nature of the task, and position power. So let's watch a short video that explains this better. There you go. That's the Fiedler contingency theory. Now, taking off on that, the next theory we're going to discuss is called the Hersey, not Hershey, Hersey and Blanchard situational leadership. So they looked again at the relationship behavior, or people-oriented, and said that can be high or low. And then they looked at the task behavior, which they said could be low or high. But they added one more variable, which is the maturity level of the followers. So the maturity level can be high, or it could be moderate, or it could be low. So if the people you're leading have a high maturity level, M4 for maturity level 4, then the best leadership style, they said, is delegating. Now, and when we did that little survey at the beginning of this module, where you classified your leadership style. Some of you had impoverished. Maybe you were really delegators. Maybe that's the answer. So you can delegate to these followers because they have a high level of maturity. If they have a moderately high level of maturity, you do participating. You get their input, but you make the final decision about what should be done. If they have a moderately low level of maturity, you use selling. And if they have a very low level of maturity, you would use telling. So there you have it. Delegating, participating, selling, and telling, depending upon the assumptions you have about the maturity level of the people you're leading. So what is maturity as he defines it? First thing is your achievement motivation. How motivated are you to achieve? Is it high or is it low? How do you feel about responsibility? Do you seek it, like it, or you do avoid it? Your education and experience. Do you have the education and experience to deal with the problem or not? So probably a lot of you have seen those videos or a movie where the pilot in an airplane dies and a flight attendant or some passenger has to fly the plane, and they get on the radio and contact someone at the control tower. They don't say, well, just you're responsible and delegate to them. They start telling them what to do because they have no experience in flying a plane. So we're going to view some segments from a video that deals with different types of leaders, and I want you, as you go through it, try to determine whether in this segment the leader is using delegating, participating, selling, or telling. Eventually we'll cover all four. Here's the first one.
Now, under the circumstances, I'm going to be talking fast, so you're going to have to keep up. Okay? Now, first, give me a basic establishing shot. How long do you want that? 4 seconds. Okay. Want another angle? No, I don't need it. Give me this interior where the secretary's answering the phone.
Good morning, this is the Arthur Company. May I help you?
There, that's good.
Okay, so that's the first situation. Was it delegating, telling, selling, or participating? Well, obviously it was telling. Okay. How do we know? The manager's giving instructions to the employee. There's very little feedback or asking the employee what he thinks. Now, why was that the appropriate style to use? Let's view what happened prior to this that will give you an idea.
Hi, Chris. Oh, Mr. Williams. Yeah, what do we have here? Well, I was just getting all the material together for the new training tape. Have you seen Ken around? He wanted to get started by 9. Well, Ken's been promoted. There was an opening in our Westline operation. They've been trying to fill that post for weeks. You heard about it last night. He started there this morning. That's great for him. I'm really glad to hear that. But what about the tape? Oh, we still need the tape by 5. Well, I could check the file, see if there's another edit. No, I don't want to hire an editor. Not now. It's too late, and I wouldn't know what I could get. Why don't you just tell me what we have left to do? There's a lot of cutting here. Look, I've only been Ken's assistant for a few weeks. He's the man who knows what you're looking for. I wouldn't want to mess it up. Well, have you been around in the shop? Sure, I'm right there. Okay. So this is the situation. We have a new training cycle beginning Monday, and this tape is an integral part of it. How about this? What about if I move all my appointments back, and I stay here with you now, and you and I can get started on this right away? What do you say? Sure. I'll give it a shot. Okay, great. You shoot up the wheels and I'll make the call. Yeah, sure. Listen, can you move all of my appointments back until after lunch? Yeah. And call Mr. Hendricks and tell him I'll have the file there at 5. Yeah, that's right. No, he'll understand. This training takes a priority of him too. All right. Okay, thanks. Okay. All set. You better have to see a copy of the script. Oh, sure. Okay. Now, under the circumstances, I'm going to be talking fast, and you're going to have to keep up. Okay. Now, first, give me a basic establishment shot.
Okay, so why is telling appropriate in that situation while the employee's only been working in the job a few weeks and doesn't know how to proceed? And there's a deadline that must be met for this project, and the guy that he's working for is going somewhere else, so telling is appropriate. Okay, so we got rid of telling. Now we have 3 left: delegating, participating, and selling. Which style is illustrated in this clip? Same manager, different employee.
You know the way we work here. Problems crop up because everybody has so much to do. Now, considering the situation, we have to become resources for one another. Why don't you start by asking Karen what kind of materials she has that might be suitable for the newsletter? Well, what about you? Do you have anything? Well, absolutely. But I think it's important that you gather other information first, and then you and I can sit down and focus on it together. That seems like a lot of legwork. Barry, you're working in a competitive atmosphere. I want you to look upon this project as a challenge. You're going to have to learn that nobody is going to do the work for you. You're going to have to be willing to go to others to get the information you need, especially when you have the time to consider a variety of resources, like Karen. Exactly. Now, I realize that Karen sometimes has a sense of ownership towards her material, but I do know she's willing to share. Well, how do I go about it? Why don't you try by emphasizing the value of her work? Tell her how much you appreciate her help and give her credit in the newsletter. Stress how she's not only helping me, but the company as a whole.
Okay, so that style was a selling style. The manager's telling the employee how to do the newsletter, trying to convince him of the approach he should take. So therefore it's selling. So the next video will show you why this was the appropriate leadership style.
Excuse me, Mr. Williams. Oh, hi, Barry. Come here. You wanted to see me? Yeah, I've been looking at your first draft. Now, you're on the right track as to the look of it. But I did notice a couple of problems. Well, I've been working on it. Well, I understand that, Barry. And like I said, with a few adjustments, we'll be ready. Now, for starters, your graphics need to be cleaned up a little. The page is too crowded. That's not a big problem. Frankly, I'm more concerned about what you're not saying in the articles. What do you mean? Well, the content's a little weak. And you take this column that you're writing about how every employee is important to the company. Now, we send this newsletter to our people because we want them to know that we care about what they're doing. We want them to know how the company's objectives complement their own goals. That's what I wrote. Well, your column never really gets to that point. Well, I think I know what you mean. But I didn't really have any good materials to refer to. So I know I need more information, but I'm not sure where I can get it. But other than bothering you every 5 minutes. Well, think. Who might have the kind of background information you need? Karen, maybe? Oh, that's a good idea. Karen is one of our best trainers, and I know that she has access to a lot of material. Yeah, Karen's a little hard to approach sometimes, Abby. Barry, you know how we work here. Problems crop up because everybody has so much to do. Now, considering the situation, we have to be resources for one another.
Okay, so selling is appropriate in this situation because the employee needs to make just minor adjustments in the newsletter and he needs more information. He needs to get input from other employees, and that's the approach that he needs to take. So we have done telling and selling, so we're left with 2, delegating and participating. Which one is illustrated in the following video clip?
Now, look, I know I'm giving you a lot of work, but you can handle it, and it's important.
I appreciate the opportunity, and don't worry, I'll be ready for my day.
Now, I and Cheryl put together a list of all the programs that we've produced in the last 5 years. I don't know how much of this you have already.
Well, only what I've worked on myself, and that only covers 12 months or so.
Well, now, our first module deals with customer service, and that includes video. Now, I know you've had some writing experience at the agency where you worked before. In fact, I was impressed with some of the samples you submitted.
Thanks.
So, what are your thoughts about the outline?
Well, I'd like to concentrate on how important it is to identify what customer needs.
Well, that's a good start.
I have some workshop material at home and an article on the psychology of service, which could give us another perspective.
Okay. Now, you won't be completely wrong. Raise aware of the situation. You can call it if you like.
That's great.
Now, I'll be back in town in a couple of days. You have help if you need it. But you've got to remember the main responsibility is yours.
I can handle it.
No, I know you can. I won't be able to spend much time with you on this. But you call me if you have any problems before Monday.
Will do.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the delegating style. The manager's making an assignment to the employee, but allowing the employee to decide how to do it, and he's making her responsible for the assignment. Why was delegating the appropriate style? Well, you'll see as you get some more insight to the employee as you see what happened before the video clip you just saw.
Sure, I'll have it for you by Monday.
Julie, have you done?
Sure.
I've got a rush project for you.
Well, that's great. But I'm working on a project for Ray, and I
I've
haven't.
already cleared this with Ray. In fact, this takes precedence over everything else.
Good. It was a pretty straightforward report anyway.
You mean bored?
Well, don't tell Ray.
You know, I'm realizing it full now. You haven't had an assignment that's given you the kind of challenge.
Well, I can't knock my work. I know it's important to the company.
Yes, but it doesn't give you the kind of opportunity to build a career.
Well, I have been looking for more responsibility.
Okay. The decision has just been made by the company to expand its training program.
Great.
And we have to have a first draft script ready by the beginning of next week.
That quickly?
Yeah, I'm going to Dallas for this convention over the weekend. The show's too big, I just can't afford to miss it.
What do you want me to do?
Well, you're going to have to check around for additional research material that you think is suitable. And come up with some concrete ideas so when I get back on Monday we can discuss it.
That's okay. I didn't have any big plans for the weekend.
Look, I know I'm giving you a lot of work, but you can handle it, and it's important.
Listen, I appreciate the opportunity. And don't worry, I'll be ready for Monday.
Okay, delegating is appropriate. The employee's looking for more challenges, more responsibility, opportunities to grow, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done, even work through the weekend. So that works with delegating. So that leaves us with one style. I'm going to ask you which style is shown in this video, but the answer is obvious. It's going to be participating.
Julie, will you pass these around, please? Sounds like a tall order. It is. Considering the scope of the job we have ahead of us, I want to open this up for discussion. Now, don't hold back. I want to hear what everyone thinks.
Well, I think one of our first priorities should be to make sure that everybody feels relaxed enough to participate in the workshop. A lot of that can come from the location. We have to find some place where it's virtually impossible to become tense.
What about that hot springs resort in Glencoe? Good idea. I've been there a couple of times. It's a great getaway.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they have conference facilities.
Is that all right with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're elected there. Call up and find out all the particulars. Price, availability, how far in advance we have to book it. You know what to do. Mm-hmm. So what about the structure of the workshop?
Well, senior management has requested that we include role plays as part of our agenda. You think our people will go for that again? Well, yes, if it's presented right. Listen, it's a great way of understanding hostilities or resolving a lot of minor complaints in a trusty atmosphere. There's going to be some people there I'd like to be hostile to. Precisely my point, Karen. You see, if we create an environment where everyone feels relaxed, not threatened, then they'll be more likely to open up.
It's worth trying. Maybe we can make a presentation of our work in progress. I can put up a sample reel.
That's a good idea.
All right, then we're on our way. Let's take the weekend to think about specifics. We'll all be back on Tuesday. All right with everyone?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, terrific.
Obviously, that was participating. It's a big project that they're working on, so he wants to open it up to everybody, and he wants to get input from everyone to get this project done. It is a team project, not an individual project. Okay? So, the next video will show you why this was the appropriate leadership style in this situation.
First, I want to compliment each of you on the way things have been going lately. I'm particularly pleased with how well we've been working together. Our productivity as a team has really picked up over the last few months. I don't think it hasn't been noticed upstairs. Now, the timing is good because now senior management has requested that we schedule a weekend team building workshop for all division managers.
And it's supposed to be off-site, right?
Right. I think the more comfortable the division heads get with each other, the more efficient their work will become. I think you can see some of that here. Exactly. That's what I meant by the timing being good. Now, some of you are relatively new to this business and to this company, but after working together for less than 6 months, we had the personnel training department running very smoothly. When I went upstairs to discuss the team building workshop, I was able to use each of you as a positive example. So we're all being made vice presidents, right? Not quite, Chris, but we are going to get an opportunity to work with the other departments in what I believe to be the most ambitious program of its kind ever tried by this company. And we get to work out the particulars among ourselves. Here are the basics. During the course of a weekend, starting on Friday evening till Sunday afternoon, 40 or 50 managers from sales, marketing, advertising, customer service,
And personnel training.
will spend time relaxing, getting to know each other, and being involved in a variety of appropriate workshops. That's going to take some planning. Well, you're right. But for once, we have some lead-in time. Julie, will you pass these around, please? Sounds like a tall order. It is. Now, considering the scope of the job we have ahead of us, I want to open this up for discussion. Now, don't hold back. Now, I want to hear what everyone thinks.
Okay, so participating is appropriate in that situation. The team works well together. The team is a good example of team building already, which is the subject of the workshops. And again, they have enough lead time to do it. Okay, so that's just where we're going to stop video 26, Leadership Part 2, and we'll continue with Leadership Part 3 in video 27.